Council. All right, I'll call to order this College Township regular meeting for Thursday, January 18th at 7 p.m. And please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, what was that, 2 minutes late? Oh, man. All right.
Jen's rubbing up on you.
While Jen's doing it, you know what it keeps doing to me too? It keeps locking like a crazy deal. I can't change it either.
So are you locked right now?
Look at it.
Oh, you mean it?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Didn't do that before. Isn't that, it's kind of nuts.
Do you need a paper packet?
All right, public open discussion. Do we have anyone online or in the room for anything that's not on tonight's agenda? Okay, seeing, hearing none, moving on. New agenda items. Does any member of council like to or wish to add an agenda item? No? Silence? All right, reports. The manager's update.
So tonight I actually get to give the assistant manager's reports.
Nice.
Just a
I've been
couple
looking
items.
forward to it all day, man.
Yeah, I'm sure. Just a couple items of note on the Dale Summit area plan. Just a reminder that we do have a joint meeting with Planning Commission set for the 24th at 6 p.m. And that'll be kind of the kickoff of the work to move towards form-based code. For the purposes of this upcoming meeting, it'll be a review of the existing Dale Summit area plan, including the incorporation of additional information from DPZ, and also to revisit some of the actions that council and EC have already taken on what was at the time a 75% complete plan. So, yeah, be a good opportunity for some good discussion, kind of a refresh and revisit where we've been, and then start talking about where we're heading. Also not listed in here, just an upcoming update for the solar power purchasing agreement. I heard Dustin mention that prior to the meeting. The working group will meet again on the 24th and will begin their review of the 5 individual agreements that will comprise that overall power purchase agreement. And if you had not seen already, CNET released a recording today that Pam had worked on. I think Pam and maybe Peter both had done a recording for CNET, so that's available for your viewing pleasures out there as you're looking at the solar power purchasing agreement. Otherwise, the only other thing I would note, obviously, we're going to be monitoring the weather for tomorrow, and if needed, we will be issuing an snow emergency. But that'll be a call made as this storm kind of develops and moves forward over the next 24 hours. So that's all I have for this evening.
All right, let's move on to COG Regional County and Liaison reports. So I know we've all had a number of meetings. Some of us were able to submit reports, some were not. We're going to put you first in the hopper, Tracy. Go ahead. What do you got going on? What do you want to tell us about?
We didn't really have anything new. The chairperson is Sultan Gregor for Human Resources. Assistant chair, I'm presently forgetting his name. There are positions that are being hired over there, so check out that website that they're hiring for those positions. And it was just a review and a recap of last year's minutes.
Okay, thanks. Eric, facilities, anything else?
Yeah, I did want to draw attention to one piece of my facilities committee report, which was last Tuesday. I don't need feedback, it's more just a heads up. Under the subject of long-range facilities plan, I'm just going to read this. The committee received a presentation from Martin Kimmel of Kimmel Bogert Architecture and Site Incorporated. The presentation was intended to help kickstart the facility committee's facility master planning task for 2024, since Mr. Kimmel's firm has extensive experience in assisting with the needs assessment and matching facility needs to limited budgets. This was a follow-up from a presentation talk with an architect and grant writer, finance expert about your challenges financing your municipal projects that Mr. Kimmel made at the PML Municipal Summit held in October. What I want to just plant the seed here that the, Rich, I don't know how much it is, but there's an amount in the budget for, to assist staff with consulting services to develop a master facilities plan. The thought was that, we'd have staff in place, an executive director, a facilities manager, and that money would be used kind of to supplement. These folks here, Kimmel, they would be a really good fit if we could commit to them to take the lead here. In other words, they have extensive experience in broad master planning exercises for municipalities and regional agencies like us. So the Facilities Committee is going to discuss at the next meeting the possibility of considering expanding our request, the facilities request, to use a consultant like Kimmel to help more, to kind of lead the process as opposed to using, sub-consultants to, to plug in where staff is, where staff needs help. Because the truth is, we all just saw the email, the executive director is resigning at mid-year.
You stole my thunder for my.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For my. That's all right.
And we haven't hired a facilities manager, and that's not even planned to happen until April. And the regional municipalities have made it very clear, and Facilities Committee doesn't disagree, that we have too many assets now. We need a broad-based asset management plan, and we can't do it ourselves. So just a heads up that you may start to hear that discussion floating through different committees like Finance and Exec, pending what comes out of the next couple of facilities meetings.
Okay. So I had 3 meetings. I had, first, I had Parks Capital. I can't remember the order. Yeah, no, I actually had Climate Action Sustainability Committee first. Biggest thing that came out of that was, so Betsy Whitman is still chair, vice chair is Matthew Heller from Ferguson. Biggest thing that came out of the meeting was just a review of the request for proposal for the regional residential refuse and recycling contract, which is interesting. But that was really the biggest thing out of the meeting, and a review of work tasks. Also, much to not my necessarily volunteering, became the Parks Capital chair. But as we know, Parks Capital has not been meeting a whole lot, and there was just review of work tasks really in that meeting. Executive Committee, major thing was, again, reorganizational efforts, affirming the rotation for who would be the chair, and the vice chair. And then we recessed to executive session to receive Eric's letter of intent for retirement in June, which I did share with everyone, and then came back into session, and then moved to add to the agenda for general forum on Monday the approval of the creation of I think it's hiring and search committee. That's what was done before. And so with that, the biggest thing we need to know, if approved by the general forum, we're going to kind of move fast, right? It's not about 5 months away, right? The biggest thing with that is that we would be having to appoint one of us to serve on that committee for the executive director. So just thoughts on that. We don't owe that yet, but likely we would probably want to make that decision in the next 2 weeks or so. That's the biggest thing I got out of executive. Any questions? Yeah.
Just on the selection committee, I know last time it was a manager or an elected.
That's true. You're right. Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, we could put a manager.
Okay.
And I did also want to ask. I thank you for asking that. And rightfully so. Maybe a more senior staff member like Mike Bloom, if we see fit, I think would be okay, right? But that's just my opinion. We can discuss that. That's all I have. Rich?
Finance met last Thursday, general reorganizational type stuff. We have 4 out of 6 new faces. Number 5 has 2 COG budget cycles under her belt. So it should be an interesting year, kind of a transitional year. And the executive director's announcement certainly will make that even more interesting, as the executive director has a key part in leading the COG budget. But we had a very robust discussion about where we hope to be for the 2025 budget cycle, and because of all the newness, we're trying to put a work session together before the next finance meeting, because our work on the 2025 budget cycle starts next in February meeting. So we're going to try to do some educational pieces. That's all I have, sir.
That's it. Any questions for Rich? Susan?
I had 3 committees. I had the CTIDA yesterday. That was the reorg meeting. Lam Hood will be chairing again, and some discussion about rotating the chair in the future, but for this year, Lam will serve as chair. And Mr. Igo and Mr. Button and Mr. Peterson did attend yesterday, and were welcome to the committee. I haven't written my report yet, so I'll add that after tonight's meeting. The LTAC committee met on the 10th. That was our reorg meeting. Don Hartzell was elected chair. Earl Moore is elected vice chair. Of note, we did have an engineer's update from Don, and there was discussion about the Center Hills Village traffic calming project, which seems to be going well. A little bit of discussion about visibility on the speed humps when it's snowing. There was one resident complaint, so there was discussion about adding delineators, but after discussion, it was decided because it was one complaint that we would hold on that for now. And there'll be a formal traffic study done again in 2024, in August of 2024. And Don, you had mentioned that there were some informal staff surveys looking at traffic in and out of there.
Yes, we've done some counts with our speed sentry, which isn't totally accurate, so I don't like comparing them against the work that's done when we have an informal study, but it shows that the speeds through there are now under 25 miles an hour, which was one of the goals of the project.
So,
Thanks, Susan.
yep.
Any
People
questions for
seem-
Susan?
It's actually pretty hard to go faster than 25 miles an hour through there.
Yeah.
That was recognized. So that was LTAC, and we don't have any plan to meet at this point. Obviously, we're an ad hoc committee. And then last, I attended public safety. That was our reorg committee. Rob will serve as chair again. I'll be serving as vice chair. We did go over quite a few different issues. We have a new emergency management coordinator who took over for Sean Kaufman when he assumed the fire director position, and that's Jonathan Risley, so we'll be getting to know him better. The 4 positions. So we did talk a little bit about the 4 positions shared between code and the fire protection program, and there was some discussion at the end of 2023 that there were some code CRCA employees that were interested in the positions, and there was some discussion about possible hire, but that's been put off until probably the second quarter of this year. Those job descriptions are now being reviewed by legal, just to make sure everything is fine, and then the hiring will begin likely in the second quarter. So, and there's more details in the report.
Okay. Thank you. I did have an alibi. I also did meet at Spring Creek Watershed Commission last evening. And just things of note there, Lee Murphy, who is our alternate, will be serving as the secretary. I will be serving as the vice chair. And Bellefonte Borough, Randy Brackbill from Bellefonte Borough is the chair. And the treasurer is Kevin Abbey from Ferguson. And the at-large member, as part of the executive committee, is from, say, College Borough, and that's Jasmine Fields. Upcoming for us of note is planned for March 28th would be a State of the Watershed, which would be something we'd all be invited to sort of get an overview and a sense for what is going on in the Spring Creek Watershed. So that is in the works and planning. Oh, and one last thing of note. So The commission did approve, the commission sourced for AmeriCorps and did approve AmeriCorps members. So that is Elise Johnson. We're working as an AmeriCorps member for the better part of 2024 with the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. So things are getting done there at the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. Okay.
Yeah, I probably should have noted that Patty Hartle and I flipped positions in facilities. She went to vice chair, and I'm the chair this year. And as the chair, I want to add that I personally do not think we will get a master plan done in calendar year 2024 without far more extensive outside consulting help. Of course, the other option is to kick the can down the road for another year or so until the new staff comes on board and, they can get their feet under them. But I think that's ultimately what the decision will come down to. Either ante up and let's bring in some more consulting help, or it just gets pushed down just gets pushed further down the road.
Okay. Okay, so,
Mr. Chair, just a general note that it appears College Township is well represented in the leadership of the COG committees.
right. That's true. Yes, that is very true. Right. All right, so, staff, well, I got PC member here. I know, Matt, you did submit a report. Is there anything you wish to highlight? If so, just go ahead, step on up.
There's 2 reports.
Well, I just sort of want to combine the two reports. A long time ago, I heard this story about the Kansas Jayhawks, that had nothing to do with basketball. And supposedly, a couple of chemistry professors were writing back from a meeting or something like that, and in western Kansas, there's a lot of limestone, and they tried to come up with something to, a saying for their university, and they're the Jayhawks. So they came up with this rock chalk or chalk rock Jayhawk group of chemistry professors. So on the January 2nd meeting, Adam brought up the whiteboard, and he called it a chalk talk. So being that we have a quarry right up the street, a lot of limestone around here, I thought we were in, Adam's not here unfortunately, but I thought in the future, maybe if we had it again, we could call it a rock chalk talk. And that's about all I have to add. Anybody has any questions?
I think planning commission reports this year are going to be a lot different.
Yeah, very different.
Thank you. Nice. Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt?
I was just going to say, based on Adam's performance at the last meeting, he can't say all that.
Oh, getting picked on when he's not here.
Chalk talk.
Okay.
Say.
Staff, anything else? Okay. DEIB.
Yeah, just a couple things. Did want to acknowledge and thank everyone for attending the Martin Luther King Junior Banquet there on campus. Continues to be a wonderful event, keystone event that honors the legacy of Dr. King and continues to move forward with progress. So again, I hope everyone enjoyed the opportunity to attend that event, and we'll look forward to doing it again next year. The only date I wanted to acknowledge, January 27th is International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you.
Did we get our great picture?
I've gotten one so far. I haven't gotten to just the College Township only pictures.
Excellent.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. So this evening's consent agenda consists of CA1, the minutes and approval of the December 21st public hearing, College Township budget, December 21st, 2023 regular meeting, January 2nd, 2024 reorganization meeting, and the January 2nd, 2024 regular meeting. CA2 includes a receipt and approval of the following correspondence. A is an email from Chrissy Owens from January 1st, 2024 regarding vandalism for the Fogelman Field. B is a letter from Wayne Lobsher dated January 11th, 2024 regarding the 2023 County West Nile Virus Program. And C is an email from Daniel Materna dated January 12th, 2024 regarding casino the PGCB lack of transparency. D is an invitation for the 35th Annual Historic Preservation Awards, the CC Historical Society, that's Center County, right? CA3, there is 2 action item approvals. A is the intermunicipal agreement with Harris Township regarding the sublease of the 1.1 acre property identified as number 2, located at the 2900 block of Stewart Drive, State College. And B are appointments to the CT Industrial Development Authority for those 3 terms, a 1-year, a 2-year, and a 5-year term. And before I ask, I will, because we did not get an interview done tonight, I will ask to pull CA3B immediately. Anyone else wish to pull anything else?
Not to pull, but just a comment on CA2A. At today's authority meeting, Center Region Parks and Rec staff indicated that the damage to Fogelman wasn't as bad as they feared. The one thing that they couldn't comment was if there was any damage done to the irrigation system, and they won't know that till they fire the system back up in the spring.
Okay.
Hey, since you brought that up, I did talk to Christie and staff about the potential for installing cameras at the park. I just pointed out that outdoor wireless cameras are cheap and easy nowadays. They're almost ubiquitous. It's just, they're everywhere and they're easy, and they are looking into that. It may not serve so much as a deterrent, but certainly if it happens, you probably stand a better chance of catching somebody. And then it serves as a deterrent. That was it.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if we should pull it, if there's any more discussion on that, or if we should bring it back at some point, to discuss the, various ways for prevention later on.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
I just toss cameras out as one low-hanging fruit.
Just put that in.
Yeah.
They're inexpensive, easy to install.
I guess my recommendation to council would be to ask staff just to stay in touch, and once we get an update from Parks, for, any deterrence or protection devices, to bring that back in, and we could discuss that.
Yeah, that absolutely could be a future agenda item.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Anyone else wish to pull anything else? Okay. All right, so I will accept a motion to approve everything minus CA3B.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have none opposed. So I pulled CA3B. So we were probably poised to conduct, we had recommendations for the terms themselves. So there was 3 candidates, right? John Peterson, who is online, we were going to interview him tonight. Unfortunately, we were not able to. We had 2 others that were already interviewed, Richard Button and Jack Igo. We could hold off on all 3, or we could appoint Jack Igo and Richard Button. The recommendations as follows via the CTIDA Executive Director were to appoint Jack Igo to the 1-year term and Richard Button to the 2-year term. So we could accomplish that tonight if council's so willing. Or we could discuss or defer, table it till later.
I'll move that we appoint, just for get discussion going, that I'll move that we appoint the interviewed candidates as recommended by the IDA.
Okay. So for the 1-year term, that would be Jack Igo, and for the 2-year term, that would be Richard Button. Do we have a second to that?
A second.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, none opposed. Okay, so that takes care of CA3B, all right?
Dustin, just as a point of order for, and this is as much for Mr. Peterson, at his convenience, we'll, look to do another scheduled interview to,
Sure.
That way you had a chance to vet him as a candidate before, considering the appointment.
Yeah. I'm not sure you want to do an interview in the public setting, do you, John?
I wouldn't care.
I'm fine either way, but we can do it all.
Yeah, okay, thanks, John. Appreciate you attending. All right, moving on then from our consent agenda to old business. We have no old business items, and on to new business. New business one is the policy direction for the 2025 through 2029 capital improvement program. Discussion, Mr. Bloom.
Sure, so for 4 of you, this is going to be a pretty quick revisit to the discussion around the CIP and specifically the policy direction. For Tracy, this will be an introduction to this, and I think it's very timely. Worked out that we had a pretty light agenda this evening, so this is an opportunity for us to take a look at this. So just a little background. On an annual basis, we do develop and adopt a 5-year capital improvement program, which ultimately becomes kind of the foundation for the township's annual budget. Over the years, that process for developing the CIP had become more of a staff-driven exercise than maybe it needed to be. So one of the things that we did last year in recognition of that was to embed a strategic planning effort into the CIP development process. That ultimately resulted in this 11 by 17 sheet, which with the really small font, which I apologize for that, that is a strategic summary that shows the alignment of the vision and mission statements, our values and goals, objectives, and then ultimately moves itself towards implementation steps that become projects that move into the CIP and ultimately onto the budget. Last year when we did this development of this document, it happened concurrently with staff also working on the CIP, and was ultimately used as a vetting at the end of the process during your typical work session to review the CIP itself. This year, as we talked about last year, this is going to take a couple years to really get into the cycle that we wanted to, and as luck would have it, we were able to move this discussion to the very front of that process. We don't typically start the staff development of the CIP until mid to late February. That gives us until about April to develop a draft document to get before you in May, with ultimately looking towards an approval in June. So by starting this discussion tonight, the goal is for you as a council to provide your thoughts on how we're doing with our vision and mission. Is it still appropriate? How we're doing in terms of our values and goals alignments, and ultimately really the heart of this discussion for tonight is those objectives that are spelled out there. Those are really the policy level pieces that helps us as a staff go in and select projects that align with those objectives that ultimately go into the CIP and start looking forward to what we try to program up in the budget. In order to have this process work a little bit more effectively, like I said, this discussion needs to happen first. We need some discussion from council to make sure, kind of check in, is this document still appropriate? Are there changes that need to be made? Any revisions that maybe you see? Anything that's kind of glaring that we want to make changes to before we kick off that process at the staff level? So for tonight, I really kind of had 3 procedural steps that I'd like to walk through in a discussion. The first is the review of the township's mission, vision, values, and goal statements. So you have those 2 attachments. The first one is just that. And for council to offer us any feedback, any revisions that you see that need to be made. The second step is to look at, again, as we walked through this last year, we went ahead and did some alignment and categorization of values and goals into those 3 kind of key areas: the engaged and inclusive, high-performing, and thoughtfully planned and sustainable community. Wanted you to take a look at that, how we have those set up, and make sure, again, that that's appropriate. But really, the heart of the discussion tonight is to take a look at those objectives, those 15 objectives that are listed in that strategic summary, and gather your input on whether those are appropriate, whether there's any revisions or additions that need to be made to that policy level direction. Just to kind of close my piece of this, one of the things that I will put out there is when we went through this last year in the spring, it took us a couple meetings to go through, so there's a recognition that we don't have to accomplish this all tonight. we certainly can move this discussion forward in either a work session or another regular township meeting in February and still align with the schedule for the CIP development. But ultimately, what we'd like to do is be able to get this document in a place where we're all comfortable with it before we kick off staff's work in earnest. So I will stop there and take questions, and then Dustin, however you want to proceed.
Yeah, let's just go through. We'll get a first round of comments or questions to Mike, basically on the process and the rest of the staff, and offer any comments on the objectives if you like, values and mission, right? So what I got, Mike, before we go into it, step one, you want to kind of say vision and mission and values, is that still there?
Right.
Step two, goals, are they still good? And then step three is objectives, are they still good?
Correct.
All right.
Awesome.
So just in general, any overall comments? We'll go with that. Susan?
Not overall, but I did have a comment about the mission statement, just something to offer some.
Yeah, we can do step one too.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. No, I think the vision statement stands, and I think it is our vision. There were two things that I thought about with the mission statement that, and I think it's a good mission statement, but adding in some language around enhancing the safety and quality of life, so calling out public safety as one of our missions. And then there's the discussion of the rural and urban, facilitating the harmony between rural and urban areas. And I was thinking of our discussions on the Dale Summit, and there's been some discussion around urban versus suburban. And so is there a place for suburban in that mission statement? Those are just calling out a couple of things that have come up as topics in discussions over the last year. So it's for council to consider.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Yeah. Rich?
No, I'm very comfortable with where we are. I have a couple, further on, but it's just small.
Okay.
Small stuff.
Yeah, I would say, as far as overall, I'm very comfortable with this product. And step one, I would definitely agree with, looking into more some of the things that Susan brought up. But overall, I think it's good. Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I think the exercise in the format that Mike developed to guide us through it was really productive. I mean, it really helped us get our arms around it and get us moving forward and get us focused. The only general comment I have is, and I don't have a suggested edit or change, is we under values, looking here, the one that references infrastructure. Okay.
V8?
Yeah. We talk about that in general, under values, and then we never really fleshed out more specific goals regarding that. I saw two references farther down in the chart. One is when we get all the way down to tasks, or capital, one was to complete the path to campus. And the other is tangentially relevant in that we're going to, under objectives, commit resources for private consultant help to help access grants. And I was thinking somewhere in between that, we just went through an extraordinarily comprehensive sidewalk master plan, but we don't reference any real follow-up to that in capital investment outside of the path to campus, unless I'm missing something. So that was the only very general thought that I had was, we made that commitment with the plan, sidewalk master plan, and I thought we ought to talk about whether there would be value then in backing that up with something a little sturdier and more specific in either objectives, operational implementation steps, or actually that would be more like capital implementation steps.
Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
I was going to say, to Eric's point, I think what you're looking for is objective 10, but I could see adding similar languages that's in objective 9, where appropriate, subsidize.
Yeah, it's there, but as you follow it through, do we really see the commitment then to the right of that for what I'm talking about?
The direct line to the PED plan is what you're saying.
It shows up in capital improvement or capital implementation steps, excuse me, under 16, but I recognize what you're, C16, what you're saying there, Eric. That obligation or commitment probably needs to move a little bit to the left in the chart in terms of objectives as well.
Yeah, it's there. I guess I was reading that more as sidewalks, and I was thinking, but I guess the walkable, bikeable, if we could expand that to bike paths, multi-use paths, and maybe that's understood in this language, and if we all think that it is, then it really doesn't matter.
No, I think it's, from my own perspective, the more we can kind of tease that out, the better. Because at some point, we're not all around this table, and it's a historical document that others can pick up and carry forward. So I think the more specific, the better.
This is really good. I mean, I had to dig to find something to comment on.
Yeah.
I love that comment.
You guys know me. I've got to comment on something.
Yeah.
I was at goals and you were down in operational objectives.
Yeah, he was
Well,
like,
But it's good.
I stopped
It's
here
good.
where I
There's
drew a line.
logic.
but
There's a logic.
I started in goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I just see infrastructure referenced broadly, and most people think of that as sewer, roads, and that. And we have really, really focused on ped and bike stuff this past year.
Yeah, to your point, I think there's a way to move that, like I said, that point and underscore that point in those objectives or even under the goals themselves. So yeah, we can work on that.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me think, and we can tease this out, and obviously you can, kind of do it every which way, right? There's a million different methods to do this, but, almost like that walkable township, right, is almost like a program level, right? And so maybe that does belong at objectives, references to certain programs, and then you get very detailed and granular as you go out, right? How do you get to that program, right? So objectives and program level may be, I drew a line right between values, goals, and objectives. I think we talked about this last year a little bit, right? That's probably where council lives, right? And getting those things outlined, much to your 3 steps, right? And then, staff would be going into, the operational and capital side of things and saying, okay, how do we achieve that, right?
Like I said, I completely understand Eric's point that we have a plan of record. There needs to be something that talks about implementing that more as a policy level than necessarily in the implementation area.
That was actually a really good comment, even though you had to dig for it, Eric. Anything else?
No, it does overlap nice with the recreational benefits, as we saw with COVID, is, not only are you developing transportation equity and mobility, we see people just walking on sidewalk, not to go anywhere, but just to walk, just to get out and walk.
Okay. Tracy?
Vision and mission, I think, are great. I don't know if we're to the values. I know we have V2 as diversity and inclusiveness. I would say that we include all of the DE, I, and B in that value, so that we don't get lost, so that it's all there.
I can do that.
I'm sorry, what was that comment again? I didn't catch it.
Sure, in values, V2, I was stating that we should do the DE, all the DE.
Include
I
equity.
and B.
Yeah, okay, gotcha,
everything.
yeah.
Call that out.
DEIB,
Yeah.
yeah, very cool, yeah. Excellent. Okay, I guess we'll just go one more round. If there's anything on step 2 and 3, the goals or objectives, Susan, if anything else additional to add that way?
It's just a couple of things. Under values, on the value statement, we actually have 11 values, and we've written down 10 here.
Okay.
So the one that was missing was, we believe it's important to engage and involve our citizens and be sensitive and responsive to their needs. So, that I think goes in right under V1. And then that, that creates that back and forth between us and the citizens, the residents. And so, yeah, that was just a little piece of it. As I'm reading this, kind of coming back to what I was saying before, as we look at something like, operational implementation steps, OP 11. So looking at how we reprioritize some of what we spend in the COG budget. So calling out safety in the mission strengthens reprioritization around, how we allocate funding for various things. So that sort of supports my ideas on calling out safety in the mission. And that, yeah, I think that's about it.
You good?
Yep.
Okay. Rich?
Thanks.
Additional goals and/or objectives?
Yeah, I similarly, I drew the line at objectives at this point of the process and everything. So under 03, the only thing, I think that's a good statement, but they also making sure that the assigned duties are appropriate to accomplish those, like you're not having people do things out of their lane or try to be reasonable with that. 06, I thought to ensure COG and other regional bodies, Spring Creek Watershed as an example, that we work with, Thompson Woods Group, various other things, just to open it up then more than COG. And then I just had a general note under some of this, we talked about it, broadband's the new roads, and if there was a way to some way incorporate that. And there's two that it could fall into, economic development or infrastructure, potentially. Seek opportunities to maximize that.
Did you say broadband, Rich?
Yes.
All right, thanks. I guess the only thing that I had to add, and I guess maybe this pulls out into some of the recent events, and I'm not quite sure where, I just want to throw it out there, I'm not quite sure maybe where it lands. I think it's in the operational implementation steps in capital, but as we were just talking about further protecting our parks, right? Because we have vandalism, maybe that pulls out those two columns out there, and making a concerted effort in investing in protection devices. That's the only thing additional I have. Eric?
I agree with that, and it dovetails nicely with what's happening and us reacting nimbly. Rich's point is a really good one. That is, when we talk infrastructure anymore, if you're talking about promoting economic development activities that increase citizens' access to quality work opportunities, you're talking about laying glass on the ground, fiber, and extending broadband throughout the township. It used to be to attract economic development, you built roads or airports or whatever. Now it's investing in broadband access is, some would say, even more important than roads and airports, because it kind of reduces the need for roads and airports. But no, I didn't even think about that till he mentioned it, but that's a big one.
If I may, and I think that even folds into protecting our natural resources too, right? Which is part of that, kind of, right? It's probably all in there, just probably not explicit or explicitly said. Okay, good, Eric?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're good, okay? I think, anything else? One last call.
No, I appreciate the comments. What we'll do is work on a revised document, probably funnel that back through you either at the next meeting or the second meeting in February, and then we'll kick off our staff work. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, NB2 is a review of the city's digital ink laserfish proposal. Mike, again.
Sure, so this one is an update from something that was already included in the budget. As we talked about during the development of the 2024 budget, staff continues to work with our consultant Cities Digital Incorporated on the implementation of the Laserfish Document Management Center here for College Township. I will note that the development of this platform has been pretty complex and time-consuming and probably a little bigger than we thought it was going to be. And as such, we adjusted our scope of work with CDI to focus their efforts on developing the actual backbone, the infrastructure or file structure that we can start to then jump off from in working with them. In last year, CDI did complete the file structures for the administration and finance departments, but in doing so, they did exhaust our 80-hour service plan with the consultants. So the 2024 budget included a line item for approximately $13,000, which was just another 80-hour service plan with CDI. Their costs for that did go up. It's reflected in the chart that's in your memo. But in further conversations, both with Adam and with CDI, we're projecting out to do a full build out for the township. You're looking at about 160 hours, which aligns with their diamond package, which is a significant increase from what was in the budget. So kind of our standard procedure is anything 10% or greater than what was estimated in the budget we want to bring back before council for a check-in to make sure that that's an expenditure that you do continue to support. What staff's recommendation is based on that estimate of hours and the amount of work that's going in, and I should also underscore our good experience with CDI. To this point, staff is recommending that College Township execute the 160-hour diamond service contract at a total cost of $28,000. Attached to your memo is CDI's quote for that contract. And then, the action that we'd be looking for, obviously, is a motion that follows that recommendation. But certainly happy to answer questions and talk this through.
Okay, questions and comments on the proposal? Start with you, Rich.
No, thanks. I can't get it up.
Here.
Thanks. It was not playing
It's going
nice.
slower too.
That's why I didn't bring it tonight.
It was working great till Eric talked about it. There we go.
I got the touch. What can I say?
No, I'm going to self-admit, laserfish is not my subject matter of expertise. But, just looking at the contracts and everything, and support staff's position.
Yeah, I just wanted to vet out, so we were previously on the 80 hours at the Platinum. Okay, and so we used that 80 hours and we only got to 2 of our departments basically complete. So how many more do we have left?
Yeah, primarily 3.
Okay.
We would be looking at engineering, public works, and then planning and zoning. We would anticipate that public works and engineering would probably consume 80 hours collectively because of this, in terms of scale, they're about the same size as admin and finance. Planning and zoning is going to be a bigger animal,
Okay.
and one that'll probably consume the remainder of that additional 80 hours for that build out, because that's probably the more complex build out. Like I said, when we first started down this path, it was under the impression that we were using CDI more as a support for us to build out the file structure. As we made a couple attempts at it, it became pretty apparent to staff that this was beyond our capacity to build out, both in terms of time and just the level of detail that you needed to put into it. Building templates and whatnot, we quickly switched that scope of work to rely on their expertise with that as opposed to that support role that was initially envisioned. So it's just become a more consuming in terms of hours on their end to help us get through this. The end goal ultimately is to have this out there as an inventory of historical documents for us to make it more searchable and certainly ease of touch to get back to historical data. But the power of this platform is pretty significant. And things that we see into the future is the potential for a public portal that accesses the Laserfish system. So folks, instead of doing, right to know request or seeking that data through staff can go in and do it themselves, quite honestly, and search data and be as transparent as possible with what we have there in terms of records.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. I support it. Eric?
Can we just send people a link then?
What the hope is to build it right into the website itself, so they can just go right into the portal.
Yeah, I have supported this from day one because I know what this does. In fact, I was kind of surprised at 80 hours to start with. Did CDI help you develop that 80 or?
Yeah, initially when we talked through it with them, it probably overestimated my abilities and time when we were working on it. I was also in a different position here within the org structure.
Okay. So they relied on staff. It wasn't like they said 80 and then we got into it and they realized real quick, okay.
Yeah, about midway through this discussion, it was pretty apparent to all of us that we needed them to do a little bit more of the heavy lifting. So.
Yeah, no, I support it. It's necessary. It isn't an extra bonus thing. It's something that we need to do.
Tracy?
I support it as long as this is the, they're not gonna come back and say we need additional hours.
Yeah, I am fairly confident that we're good for the build out of the structure here.
So, just confirming, so, I mean, we did have money in the budget, we're adding more.
Yeah, we had estimated 13,000, it was part of the budget. This is obviously 15,000 above that, but it's also double the size of the contract that we had initially thought through.
And those would have come out of our general fund?
Since you brought that up, I had a question just on the recommended motion. Do we need to officially amend the budget then?
That's a good question, and I don't know that I have a good answer. I think based on the fund balance that we have available, I don't know that we necessarily have to amend the budget. It's just it's an overage.
You should identify the source of the funds. I think that's appropriate.
All right.
Are you suggesting that should be a condition of the motion?
Just a clarification, you move to authorize with funds from the general fund, reallocated from the general fund.
Yeah, the additional funds come from the general fund as part of the motion. Okay. Susan?
No, I have no questions. I agree.
Oh, do you want to take a stab at that motion?
Sure. Mr. Chair, I move to authorize staff to execute a 160-hour diamond service contract with Cities Digital Incorporated for the continued build-out of the Laserfish document management system, not to exceed $28,000 with funds reallocated from the general fund.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, we'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Do we have any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, staff informatives. Do we have any staff informatives?
Nothing
There is some, but
calling right out yet at this point. Anyone else around the table? No.
Okay.
I have a question for staff.
Dun, dun,
Is this
dun.
the appropriate place? Did you want the staff having additional information or update on the,
Well, it could be other matters, and we can move into that. I'm just giving you a hard time, but we could, I think it's the appropriate place.
I mean, I don't want Tracy to think that we only have meetings that are less than an hour, because it's gonna be,
No kidding.
I mean, she's gonna go home and say, wow, this is great.
It's okay.
I know, exactly.
It would have been longer.
Let's make it a habit.
We lost tonight. It would have been longer.
This isn't a fair start.
No, on the refuge and recycling snafus we've been experiencing, not just in college, but regionally. Anything beyond what you shared with us in the email?
Sure. So obviously, the last 2 weeks have been a bit of a struggle. Weather has created some havoc for both waste management as well as Center Region Refuse and Recycling Authority as they circulate here through the township. what I've shared with council is that this week in particular, it was more of a communications issue. I think we all recognize that, they have to protect the wellness and safety of their employees and getting out there, but it wasn't well communicated. We tried our best once we were notified, but it was certainly probably too little too late for a lot of folks. The hope is that, this gets rectified moving forward. We've had some discussions with Shelley Mado and expressed that to her, and she shares that frustration that this last time around it was not well communicated. And certainly I know there's been a couple, I've heard from a few residents, and I know Michelle at our phone line has heard from quite a few that have been missed for 1 or 2 weeks because of the way these storms have stacked up.
If you're on a Tuesday,
Tuesdays have been rough. So, yeah, I mean,
I'm on
that,
Tuesday.
I'm on Tuesday.
I'm on Tuesday, too.
Those of us in the Lamont area are on Tuesdays, yeah.
yeah, so
Tuesday snowstorms.
this week was particularly challenging, and it was, part of it was compounded by communication and messaging that came through to us. We tried to share the best we could, but it was late coming.
I have a question. How does this compare to years past before we had the contract with Waste Management? I mean, were there these kinds of problems with pickups? Or is this sort of picked up?
As a College Township resident,
Yeah.
I can say no.
Yeah, okay,
I mean, we've had 2 snowstorms of, 3 or 4 inches?
Right.
And, give me a break.
right.
You're being kind, and I appreciate that, but you're right, it was failures on 2 levels. I mean, they came up, my street wasn't served on the first Tuesday, but they came up, turned around on the street, it was plowed, it was cleared, there was no issue.
Right.
And if every time we get 3 or 4 inches of snow, we're gonna have to deal with this, then we do have a big problem. And the communication issue is an issue, because the only reason I found out is that we're signed up for email alerts, but my neighbors all up and down the street, trash just stayed out all week because they had no idea if they were coming back the next day. It was Christmas tree collection week, so we had Christmas trees blowing around the neighborhood.
We had the same problem with the Christmas trees.
So it is, you're right, it's a twofold problem. And then, of course, they didn't do themselves any favor by some messages they posted on social media that were pretty lame. The excuses they made. I mean, let's buckle up. Everybody knew there was a snowstorm coming. Everybody geared up, prepared, worked longer hours, brought people in. I mean, this can be dealt with.
And I think the point's been made that if an emergency vehicle can make it to a site during a storm, then waste management is important, and getting that garbage picked up is important for the residents.
And I did have refuse and recycling picked up the day I didn't have trash, so that wasn't a problem. And to be honest, the street conditions were worse at the time of the day they were picking up than when trash normally picks up.
Yeah. So,
So I think we need to make accommodations for true emergencies, but I don't think these 2 weather events, if they're
I don't think
emergencies.
3 inches of snow is an emergency.
We're in
I
for a
don't.
long winter. Every time it snows 3 inches,
Yeah.
we can't get service.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any Friday service? Let's see what happens tomorrow. I don't know.
Not me, I'm Tuesday. You're Tuesday?
No, I'm Tuesday.
You're
I'm
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Wednesday. I'm Wednesday.
Rich, you should be Tuesday.
I am Tuesday. My trash
picked up?
got picked up.
That's why he's been quiet.
No comment.
All right.
Well, there was that, there was some folks that got picked up and others that didn't on the Tuesday collection. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I got us past 8 o'clock.
All right,
Good
Done.
job, good job.
just out of principle, we couldn't let it happen. Okay, so our final item, are there any other matters that we don't want to bring up? Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'm
There you go.
All right, we are adjourned.